Thank you for joining us for using Evernote to manage resources and effectively support learners in a multi-level classroom. That is a very long title, I have to admit. This is our Evernote webinar. It's a bit easier that way. And I'm really glad that you were able to join us today. Some of you are enjoying your lunches, which is great. That will actually tells me that you really wanted to be here. I'm really glad about that. And I'm really hoping to not go longer than 1 hour to make sure that you can learn a bit today and then you can apply some of your skills in your practice as well. So let's just go over some of the navigation and information, how this is going to play out. What I'm going to do first is going to be out of housekeeping to make sure you are comfortable with the tools we are using. I'm going to give you a bit of background about myself, about Maxine, who was working with me on this project, and also why is Lawback involved. We're going to do a bit of questions and discussions. You're going to use the questions box for that to give me your feedback and ideas. And then we're going to talk about Evernote, what it is, how it works, how Maxine used it. I'll show you some sample Evernote notebooks and notes so that you can have a better idea how someone is actually using it in practice. I also hope to explore Evernote Live with you, which basically means I will be navigating through different pages to show you different things. And then, of course, at the end, we are going to do a bit of feedback and information about other webinars we are organizing. So the housekeeping tips. When you look at the screen right now, what you should see is on the left side is a display of what I'm sharing with you through my screen. And on the right side, you would have a control panel with different tools for you specifically. And very likely, you will have the audio section where you can control or test your microphone and speakers. You will also have a question box where you can type in questions for me, and they will display on my screen. Those questions will not likely be shared with other participants. You will see in the box is actually questions for staff specifically. So what I usually do is I get the question and I repeat that question or information to other participants so we can interact that way. Some participants we work with use other tools as Adobe Connect or Centra, and you may be comfortable or used to actually chatting with other participants during the session. That is not available in GoToWebinar, the tool we are using. And I have to say I am a bit thankful for that because sometimes participants will just kind of miss what we are saying because they were busy doing something else. So that way, hopefully, you will stay focused on what we are sharing with you. Usually, this is more one-way communication. Basically, it means I'm talking, you're listening. It works very well for some participants. Others want to be more involved. So you will have other tools that you can use to communicate with me, and that will be there's a raised hand option that you can use. So if you click on that, it will notify me that you want to say something, and I can see Jennifer is raising her hand and lowering her hand. Thank you, Jennifer. That basically tells me she's testing it. That's good. But if you raise it and it stays, that basically means there is a question for me, and I will stop and then make sure that I can answer that. The easiest way is just to use the questions. That way I have them displayed right on my screen very quickly. So thank you, Jennifer, for letting me know that you're playing with the hand. Other things that I want to point your attention to is that there's a new tool or new feature right in the GoToWebinar, which allows me to share files with you. And you should see two files that I uploaded. One of them is the presentation I'm sharing with you on the screen. And this is really just so that you can download it if you have problems viewing the screen I'm sharing with you. Another one is a document with links. I am planning to copy and paste links directly into your into the chat, so you will be able to see it as well in your panel. But if there's a problem, you can always open the second document, and that's where the links will be as well. If you have any questions at any time, please do not hesitate to stop. I am going to go through this content fairly quickly. So if I'm going too fast or if you have additional questions, there is time for us to stop and answer any questions you may have. Okay. So to give you a bit of background, I use the name Maxine a lot, and she's an instructor, LBS instructor at Dixon Hall in Toronto. I met her last year, and she agreed to work with Alpha Plus on technology coaching and services that we provided last year. It's a service that we are providing this year as well. And at the time when I met Maxine, we were trying to figure out how we can help Dixon Hall with integrating a bit more technology in their teaching and in their practice. Maxine specifically was looking for a tool that would allow her to work with a multi-level group of learners. And she was very skeptical about using any kind of technology with the learners she had. And I'll give you a bit of information about that later on. When we started working together, it was a few weeks before we really figured out where we are going to go with this. We explored different tools to sort of address some of the needs she had. And in the end, we ended up picking Evernote to try if that will work with her learners. And it was a specific way we used Evernote that really worked for her. And that's what I want to highlight with you today, to show you one specific aspect of Evernote that worked for Maxine and for her learners. A bit more about me. I know most of you, so that's really good. But as you know me, I'm projects coordinator at Alpha Plus. Some of you may not know that I have been with Alpha Plus for more than 15 years, so it's a bit of a long time. I worked with Maxine. I was the one assigned to Maxine to work with her last year. And I spent a few days trying to figure out some of Maxine's needs and the tools that I was familiar with to figure out which tool may actually work best for her. So it wasn't a process where Maxine, I'm looking for a list of 10 items and immediately I answered, yes, you should use this tool. No, we had to do a bit of testing and practice and exploring to really figure out what may work the best. And I really thought Evernote may be one of those tools. Just to give you a bit of idea about the coaching services we do. So last year we interviewed over 40 organizations and we tried to figure out how they use technology, how they plan for technology, what's the setup, what are the barriers for them. And we gathered all this information and picked organizations we thought we may be able to help with some of the technology coaching and support. And Dixon Hall and Maxine's program was one of those organizations. Our staff, me and Matthias, Maria, and Guylaine, we were assigned to specific organizations, 3 to 4 at a time, and we would work with those organizations to help with anything we could. So it would be with planning or implementing specific tools, planning for the devices that will be used, doing some professional development, and anything else that the organizations may need help with, we would try to help out. And this is something we are doing this year as well. We already have picked our organizations, 4 per staff member, approximately 14 in total. And if you are interested or would like to explore that in more detail, just shoot us an email at info@alphaplus.ca, because that may be something we could do with you next year if you're interested as well. Okay, and so let's talk about our connection to Lawback. And thank you, Diana and Lana, for joining us today as well. We presented a session on Evernote at the Lawback conference. And it was in June. Maxine was able to join me for that event. So that was really great because participants were able to meet Maxine in person. And the session was very successful, very popular. We got very good feedback from participants, but it was a small group. So we thought it would be nicer to open it to a wider audience. And even if people could not participate today, they will be able to listen to this recording, which will be something that we know will be popular among participants. So thank you, Lawback Ontario, for working with us on this webinar. We really appreciate that. And I just wanted to let you know that Lawback is also doing various webinars. And there's one that they just organized recently. You may have participated. Literacy learners working at lower levels. There is a link in the slides. So if you open the link directly, you should be able to navigate to the presentation. And then there will be a recording from that posted on their website. So just so you know, I know many organizations now are organizing webinars, and Lawback is one of them as well. Okay. So before we continue and talk about Evernote in more detail, what I would like to do is I would like you to do a bit of reflection about what you do in your program and how you manage your resources. So I want to ask you a question. How do you currently manage and share your administrative, teaching, and learning resources? And when thinking about that question, consider what tools do you use to manage your content? How do you share teaching resources with your colleagues? And if you don't, that's okay too. And how do you share website links and documents with your learners? And if you do or not. Think about that just a few minutes, and if you could type that information in the question box, any feedback you have. For me, it could be just a Commons Drive that we share with our staff. I could have bookmarks on our browser. How are you doing that? What works for you or maybe doesn't work for you? Just take a few minutes to let me know. I'll wait and see what your feedback will be in the questions box. Don't be shy. I'm waiting for your responses. Okay, so Carrie is letting us know that she's using Dropbox and social media. That's fantastic. Carrie, I know you can't speak, but I'm just going to clarify for the Dropbox, are you using it between staff only, or are you using Dropbox with learners as well? If you could just clarify, that would be great. And then Lana is letting us know forward by email to other staff and to our, I just have to expand my box to see this in more detail, to our member agencies, posts on Facebook. That's really good. And Jennifer, you're saying share the drive on server, different folders, emails, favorite tabs on all learners' computers. That's really, really good. All kinds of great feedback. And I think many of us have different ways and methods to manage content. What I found difficult, or we were looking at when it came to Evernote and different tools we were using, is that there were different barriers to some of those tools. For example, if you're using a browser, very often the content is saved only on one computer, unless you are able to link and logging into your browser and share the links between different browsers. I think Chrome can actually do that for you. If you're using Dropbox and it's only internal, some staff may not have access to the computers from work at home. So again, those become barriers in a way that there's no access to this information, sometimes 24 hours, 7 days a week when it's actually needed. For some of you, it may work very well. For others, it may not. And I'm just going to add that Natalie is saying we share documents on our internal network within a shared drive. So that is our Commons drive. We call it Commons at Alpha Plus, a drive that we all share and can access. We have to access it through a specific login, which again creates some barriers for us when we are working from home because we have to log in. And then if we need to move the files between that drive and our personal computers we are using, or even work computers, sometimes it gets a bit more complicated. Some of you mentioned sharing by email, which is really a good method, but to the point where it can get overwhelming. And sometimes it's easy to find emails with shared information, but how do you really sort those emails, or how do you group this information so that you can quickly find it when you need it? We do this at Alpha Blast all the time as well. We share information by emails, and then it just gets overwhelming. Some of us get so many emails during the day that it just gets too much. So all great tips. I'm not saying they're wrong or anything, but I want to let you know that Evernote may be the alternative for you, or additional tool that you may use for a specific purpose. But that was my goal, to sort of have an idea of how you're using your tools right now. So let me go on and just moving into other things and clarify with Carrie about Dropbox. So I have used Dropbox with learners, but primarily with clients and team members. Carrie, very good. And the Dropbox is a fantastic tool to use. And emails, Diana, you're telling us emails. So again, good ways to share information, but sometimes it gets get complicated when there's too much information. So when it comes to the actual Evernote and tools we are talking about, Evernote is a web application, which means it sits in a browser, in a cloud, accessible from anywhere. And just to clarify what a cloud is, it's a server that sits at a remote location to which you connect through your computer, through your browser, log in into the service, use the service's tools and resources, and then you can save the information between your computer and that server. So it's like a remote computer you connect to. And the Evernote tool that we are going to explore today is enabling us to save website, save PDF documents, save Word documents, Excel files, personal notes, pictures, anything you can think of, you can very likely save in Evernote. It is also available on computers, smartphones, and tablets, which means even if you don't have access to your computer but you have a smartphone, you can log into your account and access the information as long as the information is connected through the login and syncing process. And you can do the same thing with tablets. And I want to highlight the tablet because if you're thinking about using Evernote potentially with your learners, tablets are amazing. And the app, Evernote app, is really good as well. So using iPads or Android tablets could be a great way for you to share resources with your learners through Evernote account. And again, just to clarify a bit more, it can be installed on Windows and Mac computers. So I'm sharing my session with you through a Mac computer today, and I will be showing you my account in Mac. It may have a slightly look than what you will see in Windows sometimes, just slightly different layout or colors, which is very, very common now when you switch between different programs. But it is a very versatile tool. So let's go back a bit to Maxine and clarify what was she looking for when it came to using the tools. And in Maxine's case, she was looking for a tool that she could use with her multi-level class. And her class had learners who wanted to improve their math skills, their literacy skills, were looking into transitioning to work or college, or just wanted to become more independent. And in most cases, the learners had English as their second language. The level of education was below grade 10, and they were not comfortable with using computers, so mostly paper-based content. And I need to clarify that the pictures you see in this presentation are the actual learners. We worked with them directly. They gave us permissions to use pictures of them. So this is actual learners. And at the end of the session, I'm going to give you links to videos where you can actually listen to the learners talking about their use of Evernote and how it changed their learning process for them. When it came to Maxine, she was the only instructor in the program. So in your cases, your program may have multiple administrators or multiple instructors. So your use of Evernote may work slightly different because you may need to share the content between each other as well. So the Evernote itself will be so versatile that you could be using it in many different ways. But for Maxine, it was on a typical day, she would have a group of learners coming into the program. She would give them a work to do, and again, usually books or handouts that she would work with, and she would navigate between one learner to the other. What would often happen for her is that she would finish with one learner, move to the other, and when leaving, she would give learners assignments. By the time she came back to the learner, they were already done and waiting for her to come back. And in some cases, she wouldn't make it to those learners. She would be so preoccupied with the learner who needed more help that the others would be just waiting and waiting and waiting until the class ended and they would go home. Some of those learners would be shy. They would not even raise a hand to let her know that they need more help. They would be just waiting, very patiently waiting, but they were wasting their time and they were getting frustrated. So in Maxine's case, what she was looking for was a tool that would allow her to spend more time with learners who needed help and give a bit more independence to learners who could function on their own, and then they could do work without having her to come back and explain to them everything. She also wanted a tool that would allow her to organize content for specific learners and also give her access for her and for the learners to different types of files, such as websites, videos, PDF documents, Word files, or images. And one of the main things that she wanted to highlight was that the learners were at such a low level that she didn't want them to be logging in all the time. She wanted them to have very quick access. So pointing learners to different websites where they had to retype addresses or understand how to navigate between many different websites, that was something she was really wary about. She was worried it may not work. She also wanted to make sure that the content is available to learners outside of the class. So if they can't make it one day, maybe they can go to library and work on the content. Or they can come to the program, and even if Maxine is not there or she's preoccupied, they could work on the content on their own. She was also looking for content that will be customized, which again, it can be complicated. We could create folders with content for learners, but it could be generic. So a learner at a lower level could open a document and find out that it's not something that they can function with because it's too complicated, which would lead to frustration. So she wanted a tool that would allow her to customize the content specifically to that learner. And the last thing that we were really looking at is the login information. Again, it's a skill that learners develop when they just start the program. Some of them may know this already, but some of them may not. And the learners in Maxine's program were not comfortable with computers, so the login process would have been complicated for them, at least at the beginning. And of course, something that would be very easy to use so they could function. Lots of demands for one tool to be able to do all that. And when we started exploring the Evernote tool, I need to let you know that it wasn't easy. She still thought that the tool would not work, that there is no tool that will actually be able to do all those things for her. She really wasn't sold on the idea, and I always bring it up because she wasn't sure if the learners would like it, will be able to function with it. She thought that if we introduce technology, the learners will feel overwhelmed, and she really struggled herself with understanding how Evernote works, but not really the functionality per se. It was more the vocabulary and also how she can organize the content that would work the best for her and her learners. And I will explain that a bit more later on. But in the end, she didn't give up. We had a moment when I was going to meet with Maxine and talk about the tool 3 weeks in when she started exploring it. And I told my manager, I said, I don't think she's going to go for it. I think there's something blocking her and she's not getting it or she's struggling. And I literally was going and waiting for her to just say, that's it, this is not working. But somehow that day when we sat down together and we tried from different angles, she got it. And she then started working on it, building it and exploring it. And afterwards, she absolutely loved it. And one thing that I didn't add here, but something that really happened for Maxine and for her learners is that they all developed tech skills. They got comfortable with technology to some extent. Of course, it's not everything, but it got them going. So after that, their comfort level with introducing new tools, exploring new tools, really, really changed. They were just so open to everything. This is a screen capture of what Evernote looked like for Maxine when she started working on it. And the reason I did not change that, although the layout of Evernote changed, is because it's a very easy way for me to try to explain to you how content works with Evernote. So let's start from the left side. On the left side, you're going to see a tab, and you're going to start with the work track and then shortcuts, then notes and notebooks. So just to clarify, notes 963 notes. That's how many documents, files, or links Maxine added to her account. And then she organized them in specific notebooks. Think of notebooks as folders where you put your content together. And it could be all kinds of content, but it sits in one folder. And she gave her notebook specific names. So she actually created notebooks for herself for administrative files, like forms, intake documents, exit and follow-up information. She kept all that information in Evernote as well, so she could access it wherever she is. And then what she did is she had a section for learners. Each learner got one notebook created for that specific learner. And then what happened for her is that she was able to put content assigned, customized to that learner into that specific notebook. So when you look at the first one, DHLBS AD, what it stands for is basically the program, DHLBS, the Dixon Hall LBS, and AD will be initials of the actual learner. For herself, she actually used full names, but for the screen capture, we changed it to initials, so we actually keep some privacy for the learners. And in the brackets, you will see that that learner only had 5 items added to the notebook. Very likely either a new learner just starting off, or learner at a very low level, so she was limiting how much information the learner had access to. But you will see that other notebooks have many more notes in them. That's very likely learners who already started, are working with it, are comfortable, and she just continues adding content to it. So let's take a look at one that's in the middle. That is actual content that sits in the notebook for DHLBS HD. There's 44 notes in that. And notes are like specific files or documents. So in this one, you will see that there are links to specific websites, such as CLEO, Community Legal Education Ontario. There's a link to pictures. There's also even an image, which is basically inspirational quotes for learners. When she added that to their notebooks, their response was unbelievable. They loved coming in every day and seeing if there's a new inspirational quote for them. And they would talk about it. They have a discussion. They would actually talk about their feelings that day. Are they feeling happy? Are they feeling sad? So it really enhanced that relationship between Maxine and her learners. There's also a lot of different documents that she uploaded. It could be Word documents, Excel documents. Basically, what that meant is that when the learner came to their notebook, they would find all those resources and they could navigate through them and play as they wish. So they could be told to go to a specific document, but if they finished, then they could go explore other sections if they wanted to, allowing them the freedom and confidence to move back and forth and a lot of independence, which really changed how the learners responded to all this content. I'm going to switch to the next screen. So keep in mind that on this one, on the left, we had all the notebooks. In the middle, we had the notes. And on the right is a sample of what sits in one of the notes. The next screen I'm going to show you is very similar. It is the same notebook, but this is learner view. What this means is that the learner cannot see all the notebooks that Maxine had created. They have only access to one notebook that's assigned to them. And when they follow a specific link that Maxine gives them, they only see the list of notes within that notebook, and then they navigate and they click on each of them and see the preview and then continue working on them as well. So the only thing they need to do is they follow the link or type in the link in the browser. When it opens, they just have to say view notebook. They click on this tiny box, the box disappears, and they can now function with their customized notebook to do whatever they want to do with it, whether it's activities or watching videos or practicing or looking at pictures or inspirational quotes. That really made a difference for them. So what I want to do next is just to clarify again what's the difference between notes and notebooks. Please keep in mind, notes are like files, but for us, files are usually Word documents or PDF files or Excel spreadsheets. In Evernote, your notes can also be website links, but this is the easiest way for me to sort of compare it. And those notes can be shared with others, specifically by link or email address. So you can actually share a specific note with somebody else. Notebooks are grouping of all those notes into one folder. So when you group them together, you can give it a name. For example, it could be assessment forms, or it could be math activities, or it could be technology tools, any kind of grouping you want to choose, and then you put notes inside of it. Again, it can be shared by link or email with others. So now that we know the difference between the vocabulary, let's take a look at actual notebooks. So this is going to be your activity. I'm going to paste the link directly in your box, so you should be able to see it very quickly. And what I would like you to do is to take a few minutes and follow the link and explore it. See what comes in. Just remember when it opens, you will have a pop-up window asking you if you want to join the notebook or if you want to view the notebook. Just select View Notebook. That way you don't have to log in, you don't have to do anything. You're just watching the notebook and navigating through different sections of it. So what I would like to take a few minutes of your time to give you a chance to explore, and then come back to me, and in the question box, we are going to share your experience. What did you think? What were your first experiences with that? Did you like it? Didn't you like it? What do you see as a problem? Would that work for your learners? Anything like that. So it's 1:28. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. If you start posting information sooner, that's okay too. But take your time and explore it. And just to clarify what this notebook is, it is content that Maxine and her learners put together to share with other learners at a learner conference. Learners, actually, Maxine's learners, came to her and said, these are sections or websites I like to use when I go to my notebooks, and I want other learners to see that as well. So Maxine created a special notebook for that conference, and this is what you're looking at when you're exploring that link. Okay? If you have any questions, let me know in the question box, and let's take a few minutes to explore together. Don't forget, you can always ask me questions or put your feedback right away in the question box. Pay attention to the types of documents or information that's included. What are they? Are they just websites? Are there images? What other things you may want to add if you were creating a notebook for your colleagues or for your learners? Two more minutes? Okay, so I can see the feedback is coming in, and Carrie is saying it's great that there is a search box. Absolutely, Carrie. It's one of those things that if you're using it for yourself and you're looking for specific information, very, very good search box to find information. And Lana is saying that she likes it a lot. That's perfect, Lana. I really hope you will start using it. Think about your board, for example. You could actually create notebooks with information and resources for the board where they don't have to log in. You just send them a link and they access all necessary information. So many different ways to use this tool. If it's between you as colleagues in a program, you could create notebooks with information and resources. Maxine did have a separate section with all kinds of notebooks for her resources. And what she was really doing is using a desktop version of Evernote. So we are not going to go into as much detail in the session today, but there is a desktop version that you can use, which means it's something you install on your computer and it synchronizes between your web version and the desktop version. So the information is the same in both. But in the desktop version, she was able to literally drag and drop content from one notebook to another or copy content from one notebook to another. So she will have a collection of notebooks with resources in it. For example, math skills, English skills, anything she thought would be useful. And when she would get a new learner, she would drag and drop content into the learner's notebook. So it was very easy and fast for her to customize the content and actually update the content if necessary. Other feedback from other participants. So another comment from Lana that this is better than PB Works. Slightly different. It's a different process for sure. And Diana is suggesting this would be great for keeping upcoming newsletter articles instead of search. Well, yes, absolutely. Anything that works for you. So just to give you a bit of information, how I started using Evernote is I literally heard about it, heard people saying great things about this, and I learned by doing. So I wanted to apply the tool and see how it will work for me. And actually, what I liked about that was first how quick it was. Second, how easy it was to share content with others, and that I could access it at any time. So in my case, I was planning a trip and was finding all kinds of information about the cities I wanted to see, things to do, things to see. So I figured, why not create a notebook for specific cities I want to explore and put content in it? So even if I don't have time now to read the articles or information, I can go back to it later and review the information. And I shared them with my husband. So we both planned the information together and shared the resources. Because Evernote allows you to not only save content such as PDF files or Excel spreadsheets or links, it also allows you to create notes. So you can actually create a to-do list directly in your Evernote, and it will be saved as one of the notes in your notebook as well. So I could actually gather information and create short lists and all kinds of information right within Evernote and then find it quickly from any location I was at. So that was my way of starting with the process, and I really, really love it. I'm going to show you soon my own my own account, you will see I have all kinds of stuff in it. Um, there's a question if there's a limit to the amount of information that can be stored. It is not per se number of notes or notebooks. It's by the amount of data you upload. So there's so many megabytes you can upload per month. And when it came to Maxine, she had a USB stick with hundreds of different activities. And when we started setting this up, she just sat down and started uploading all the PDF documents and Word documents and Excel documents into this. And she got blocked. So what the system basically told her, you're using a free account. I think you have up to 6 megabytes or 2 megabytes of data per month. You exceeded that limit. Wait until the month ends and you get another 2 megabytes of data. So she just waited and added more content afterwards. Another option, if you want to really add a lot of content, which means size-wise. So if it's just links to websites, you will never exceed that limit. But if it's documents like a report that's 4 megabytes in size, you're going to start exceeding some of your limits. And basically, you can also buy a paid account, which is $50 a year. So it wasn't very expensive if she wanted to upgrade. I had never exceeded my amounts, and I do link to reports and other things. However, I do not upload a lot of documents. I just usually link to documents that are online, which potentially saves me a lot of space. So that's just to clarify that you can do either way. You can either just be careful with how much information you upload per month, or be strategic about that, or maybe you will have to upgrade the account. But again, not a very expensive thing, and a lot of people that we worked with, they never had to upgrade. So I don't think you will need to as well. Okay, so now that we took a look at the actual Evernote account, let me go back to my presentation. I very likely will use my section on my slides, so just bear with me for 1 minute. Come on, go back, go back. Doesn't want to go back. Okay. I just have to get back to my slides. And if you're wondering, the slides are already posted on Alpha Plus website. So if you go to Alpha Plus, if you go to training, this is where I'm actually streaming my presentation for you. And you go to archived webinars, the slides are posted as a link directly there. So at any time after the session, of course, I'll send that link to you, but after the session, you can always find this information on our website. So let me just find the spot where I was when I started. I apologize for that. Of course, it's not going to go as smoothly as I hoped. Here we go. So we explored the link. And what I just wanted to tell you a bit more when it comes to a few pointers, there's two things. When we shared the link with the learners, the link itself can be very long. So we didn't want that for the learners because it could be overwhelming. So we used a tool called Google URL Shortener, which is goo.gl, and that will give us a very short link for the address. So on the slide that I shared with you before, if I go back here, you can see that the link is short enough to actually for somebody to memorize it, because if they know they need to type in the goo.gl/ and then specific code assigned to them, it's only 6 characters. So with time, learners actually memorize that because it was always the same address for them. So that's something that really worked for them because they were not as overwhelmed by going into the addresses. Short link, easy to find. And what we really did is Maxine was very specific that she was okay with learners having those links public. So she posted it in the class as a spreadsheet, just on the information board. So if they came in and they misplaced the information or forgot, they could just look up their name, their address, and go in. And I know some people ask about privacy or sharing this information with others. Because most of the time this was links to activities or websites, there was no issue with personal information or anything like that. And she even removed the name, so it was initials to make sure that the learners are a bit more comfortable with that. But what she really learned during the whole process was that the learners were sharing the information. So they would see what somebody else is doing on the computer, and if they liked what they saw, they would go to Maxine and say, can I also try that? And Maxine would copy and paste the information for them into their own notebook so that they could also access that information. So that was a really nice way to see how they were learning from each other. So that URL is very easy to use. You just type in goo.gl into your browser, and it takes you to a page where you can create shorter links. If you're logged into your Gmail account, it will be even faster. It will actually memorize that and tell you how many people or how many times somebody clicked on that link. If you're not logged in, it will just ask you a few steps, including a CAPTCHA, just to make sure you're not a robot. And then it will give you the short link as well. So it's a really, really neat way to create shorter links that may be easier for somebody to access or even to promote if you're using tools that have a very long website address. So let's go back to Maxine and just see quickly how it worked for her and what difference it made. So in her case, she was able to save and organize different resources in one place. So I mentioned to you the USB stick. If she was working with colleagues, keeping it up to date, exchanging that information may be difficult. If she could just share the notebooks with her colleague, and that would be much easier. And both of them or three of them or a group could actually update the information at the same time. What's also nice about Evernote is that because you can create notes and add information to each note, that includes images. And in her case, what she was worried about is the instructions for the learners. She was worried that the learner will not be able to read the instructions and understand what they have to do. So if she was pointing them to a website and they had to scroll down to go out to a specific section, she would take a screen capture of that section and say to learner, look on the website for that section. That's where I want you to go to click for something. And they very quickly picked up on what they needed to do and were independent in navigating other websites. It was much easier for her to manage her multi-level class because she didn't have to rush anymore. The learners had their notebooks. If they finished the work she assigned to them, maybe even handouts or documents in class, they could go off and navigate to their notebooks and do different activities on the notebooks, math activities, YouTube videos. They could also even print out their documents if they wanted to. They were more engaged because they will be coming into the class, and believe me or not, within the first few weeks, Maxine told me, I'm overwhelmed by how much they do. They literally would come every day, even though they were supposed to come only every day, once a week, and they would ask for more and more and more. They loved this idea. It gave them freedom. It gave them confidence to move on. And they were working on their own pace, and somehow they were open to challenges. So before, they would rely on Maxine to give them all the instructions. But somehow with this tool, they were open to trying things and getting comfortable with trying to click on things and navigate, which gave them additional skills with tech skills, something that sometimes we forget that could develop as part of their learning process. And being able to customize those lessons, that was a big thing for Maxine. She really loved that idea. She also felt that the Evernote, because of all the notes and notebooks in it, kept a record of the work she assigned to the learners. And she could literally print out a page with this information and put in the lesson plan package for the learner in their folder. So that would be a track for her of what the learner was doing. In the end, when we finished this process together, I worked with Maxine's learner, and we nominated Maxine for the Employment Ontario Award, and she actually won the award. So it was just amazing experience for all of us. For me, to work with Maxine, to work with the learners, to observe how they were changing through this whole process was just amazing. And then in the end, to receive that award, to have Maxine go and pick up that award was just amazing. Beautiful experience. Now, when it comes to the learners, there was a big impact as well. And the main thing was the self-esteem. And I can't really stress that enough because we were amazed by how much learners were changing. Every time I would meet with them, they will be more comfortable. They will be pulling out their cell phones. They will be trying tablets and just navigating. They were confident with using all kinds of technology. For example, they quickly learned to open new tabs in a browser, to know that when they need to go to the address, they don't go to the Google search box, they go to the URL field. All those things were skills they were learning in the process. And I always remember the main thing they told me that they wanted to highlight when they started was that they learned how to print. Such a basic thing for us, but for them, sometimes it's a big step. So they would go to a PDF document and Maxine showed them, click here to print it. They would go print it, put it on their desk and work on it. That was a big step for them. They would try different activities and manage their learning. So for example, if they tried something and they didn't like it, they will move to the next one. And Maxine was comfortable with that. She was okay with allowing them to choose, which again reinforced their independence. They had access to activities outside of the class, which again goes back to them coming back for more. They would just add more and more because they really loved doing what they were doing. And some of them had computers at home, so they would do it at home or go to the library. They were doing more work, they were making faster progress, and they were really motivated and challenged themselves and challenged others as well. So by watching what others are doing, they wanted more information and wanted to learn similar things, and vice versa. They also were collaborating, helping each other. There was a lot of peer-to-peer support where they would go around and help. And in the end, after all this, they agreed to present at the MTML conference. Somebody who, when I met them, would not look in my eyes, would not raise a hand, would not say that they need help, went to a conference, stood in front of 10 to 15 people, instructors and learners, and talked about their story, and then walked around and showed other learners how to navigate Evernote. For us, that was a highlight because their confidence went through the roof, their comfort level went through the roof, and even in discussions with some of them, I was realizing that this whole process changed their mindset to the point where they were reevaluating what they learned and how much more they can learn and what choices they made when it came to their work and careers. They really were saying to me, now I know I can do more. So I don't want to be a caregiver. I want to go to college and finish something. It was just amazing to see that difference in them just by introducing a tool to make it easier for them to learn. I get goosebumps every time I talk about this because it's just so amazing. So for the learners, the next steps were, and for Maxine, because they were learning about Evernote and how it works, she wanted then to move them into the actual login. So then she would develop with them skills to how they log in into the account, how they set up their own account, which again, in the process and in the lesson plan, could be a milestone for them to complete. She also wanted to purchase iPads for the program so they could access the Evernote accounts through the iPads and develop other tech skills in the process as well. But also, what she was looking for is the idea that they could take pictures with the iPad and upload it into their Evernote notebook account. For example, a homework. They could complete the homework, take a picture of it, upload to Notebook, and Maxine could see it in their account. So there is a shift. There's actually going the other way, where now learners are submitting their assignments through Evernote. And when they leave the program, there could be notebooks that will be useful for them afterwards. For example, looking for jobs, tips on how to do job interviews, how to manage their schedules, recipes, and other hobbies they may have. All that they have access to after they finish the session. So that was the main steps for them. It was really important for them and made a huge difference overall. So for you, how it could work for you, there could be different things. For example, you could decide only to use Evernote for yourself to manage your own links and resources. And that's how I started. You could set up organizational Evernote accounts to share resources between staff members. You could also use it with your learners and keep track of what you assigned to your students. Have learners submit assignments the way Maxine was hoping to by adding them to Evernote Notebook and having them set up accounts so they could use their phone or tablet to take a picture and submit the work into the notebook. So a lot of different ways Evernote can be used. Let's summarize very quickly. Evernote can help you organize and manage your different resources. And keep in mind, it's not only documents, it's also links and videos as well. Access resources on any device at any time. Huge difference if you're using a phone a lot or if you're using a tablet. Introduce technology to even low-level learners. And she and her learners, Maxine and her learners, are a great example for that. Manage multi-level group of learners. You can set up notebooks with different levels, different difficulty levels. You could actually set up notebooks for level 1, notebooks for level 2, different ways you can organize the content. You really are supporting learner engagement and changing the way the class functions. And you're really encouraging independent learning, which can be a very big boost to somebody's confidence. So in the slides that I'm sharing with you, you will have two links. The first one is a link I shared with you earlier, which is the Learner Conference Notebook. So you have access to that afterwards and can explore it in more detail. The second one is resources we would like to share with you. So in that notebook, you will have a link to more information about Evernote. You will also have videos with Antoinette and Fatuma talking about how Evernote changed their learning. So you can go to that afterwards as well. And quick discussion. Now that you have seen some examples with Evernote, any other ideas or suggestions of how you could be using it? How would you group the content? I just want to point out that it may take a few tries to find the system and how it's set up before you actually get comfortable with it. So don't get discouraged. Try different ways and see if it works for you. So I'm just going to take a minute to see if there's any feedback from you about ideas or suggestions of how you think you will use it with you or with your colleagues or learners. Question box. Any suggestions? So what I'm going to do is, rather than waiting for you to answer, please feel free to still type in the answers or suggestions. I'm going to continue and then answer if there's anything coming in through the question box. What I like to do is just address two more things before we continue into the actual sample. When it comes to technology and low-level learners, when we work with instructors, we often have that discussion about access to technology. Some instructors come back to us and say, well, why would I be using this technology if learners can't access it? They don't have smartphones, they don't have tablets, they don't have computers. And when it came to Maxine's program, that was my question for her as well, because I realized that the learners actually had the devices. And what I learned from her is that she worked with them and submitted requests to different different programs to help them secure technology. And in her case, she used something called Hope for Children and Adopt a Family, where they would write a letter and say why they need specific technology or tools. And during Christmas time, people who could afford it would sponsor those families to provide the technology to sort of fulfill the wish list. And that's how many of Maxine's program actually got devices. They had smartphones. And when it comes to computers, there's also many different programs where you can help learners get access to low-cost computers. There's Ontario Works programs that do that. There's Renewed Computer Technology program that can allow you, and I included a link for that, up to $50, and you have a full new computer. So it's a really great program to use if you want to encourage your learners to have access to technology as well. And in some cases, when it comes to technology, the discussion of, if somebody doesn't have the tool, why are they learning about it? In our world right now, we really are exposed to technology all the time. And even if we don't have a smartphone or tablet, we are expected to use it. And when it comes to my examples, Canada Blooms, I go to an event every year. And every year I'm handed in a tablet to fill out a survey. It doesn't mean I have to know how the tablet works, but just being able to navigate through the screen to fill out a survey, that's a big deal. So imagine if your learners are at least comfortable with handling a tablet and knowing that they have to tap or do things to be able to manage. That is a big boost to their confidence. Many cash registers now are actual tablets. So if learners are looking for skills to be able to work in a cash register, sometimes it will be a tablet. Some people at conferences or events, they would be using payments, smartphones to do payments for Square registers, the tiny box that get added to the phone or tablet. Same idea. How do you use it? Do I understand what's happening with my credit card when this is happening? All this technology is happening to us whether we want to or not. And the more we expose learners to it, the more we have them understand what's happening, the better it is for them as well. And even at the airport, there's tablet that you use to check in for the flight. So all this technology is happening. Again, if you have other examples, please feel free to put that information into the box. You can set up Evernote account at evernote.com. Free account, no problem. One thing that I want to show you in 2 minutes is the Web Clipper, which is a tool that makes saving to Evernote a breeze, very, very quick. And then there's the desktop version that I mentioned. I'm not going to go into that one in more detail, but I just want you to be aware that Evernote is a pretty comprehensive tool that you can use in many different ways. So let's go live. What I'm going to do next is go into Evernote. So let's assume I went into evernote.com. I come to the landing page, and in my case, I already have an account, and the system remembers it. So it will be much easier for me to sign in. But if you were to sign up, that's where you will come as well. I'm just going to say sign in. And the system is going to navigate and take me in to my account. Again, that's because my browser remembers my login information. So now I'm looking at a web version of Evernote. And the way it's organized is that automatically it gives me a list of different notes that I have. I have 648 notes saved in my Evernote. And that could be anything from assessment tools that I explored from my work through different recipes, some of them in Polish because I find them in Polish, different programs that I'm familiar with or want to keep as a reference for later on, through all kinds of different information. And each of those notes will have a title, some information for me to give me an idea of what it is for, very often an image to give me a quick tip of what it is, and the date when it was saved. All those notes are saved and can be organized by date or by topic or by title alphabetically and in many different ways. So if I select, let's say, a recipe that I have, this is a recipe for a cake. Because it was saved from my website, the system put in the title and also a preview of the website as well. In the corner, it also gives me a link to the website. So I could literally click on it and go to the website to see my recipe. And this was done through the web clipper. There's other things that I save a lot, and most of them I do save through the web clipper. What the web clipper does is it installs a tiny icon in your browser, and my web clipper is right here. I hope you can see it. And if I'm on a specific website, I just click on it. It will do a pop-up and save the information for me into my Evernote. But what I love about it, that I don't have to do anything else. It brings in the title, the description, the preview. All this information is automated. Another option to create notes is to go and do them manually. So I can just literally go in here and create a new note. Click the plus symbol. It's going to ask me what's the title, what's the description. So this would work for me if, for example, I wanted to create a to-do list, or if I wanted to create a journal entry. I may choose to create a journal entry on a daily basis. Your students could be creating journal entries in their classes. What was your day like? Talk about your experience. As they're working on their writing skills, reading skills, there could be different ways this could be utilized. Now that I'm just going to cancel this, and it's going to take me back to my notes. So all the notes that I have are displayed in alphabetical, it's in by date. So the latest ones are on top. They're not grouped in any way. But if I look at the navigation on the left, what you're going to see is I can add a new note, I can search, I can also do work chat. It's a new feature that allows you to share content with others through a chat. It's kind of strange. I'm not crazy about that, but it's still there. You can also create shortcuts in your Evernote account, potentially to places or sites that you visit a lot or documents you may want to access very frequently. Then there's also another way to look at your notes, and they're notebooks. So I'm going to click on notebooks, and notebooks are groupings where I group my notes together. So for example, I have photography. I have 3 notes in that. I had a notebook for Dixon Hall computer when we were testing it. 7 notes in that, and then more different notebooks. And you will see some of them have 1 note, some of them have 20 notes. I use them for many different purposes. A lot of recipes, trust me. And I do have a folder called recipes. If I go there, this is scrolling alphabetically right now, 69 notes in my recipes, 69 recipes that I have saved. And trust me, when I'm in my kitchen, I pull out my phone, go to my Evernote, and follow and use the recipes all the time. So even if just that will be something that will help you to start using Evernote, do that. Why not? And then you can build up on it. What I also like about Evernote is that you can group or code your notebooks. So if I go back all the way to top, you will see that I have something called AP assessment. What it is a note that I have for Alpha Plus. So I choose to have acronyms or things to code my notebooks, and I'm not very worried about separating the content because when I share notebooks, I only share specific notebooks. So if I share access to AP assessment, people cannot see my other notebooks. So there's no problem with the information. So I keep them all in my account. It's one account. It's easy to access, easy to save. The last thing I'll show you, I'm running out of time, is if I go to a website, this is my sample, Learning in the Social Workplace. They just announced top 100 tools for learning 2015. And I love the site. I came across it. Somebody sent me a link. I want to save it to my Evernote. I'm going to go to my Evernote web clipper, which is here in my browser, click on it. It's going to pop up a box and it's going to say, okay, this is the title. What do you want to clip? Do you want to clip a small section of it, full page? I usually do full page, a screenshot, anything you choose will be saved. Then it's going to ask me, where do you want to add it? These are all my notebooks that I already have. I do like my teacher notebook. I save a lot of content in there, so I'm going to select it. I can also add tags if I want to make it easier for me to search for content. And when I'm ready, I hit save, and that information now gets clipped into my account. It's very, very quick and easy to do, and that's what works for me the best. I can also go back into my account and create personal notes, manual notes. It's just going to take a bit more time. So now it's saved. I'm going to go back to my Evernote account. I'm going to refresh, and I am in the notebooks. So I'm going to go back to the notes. See the very first one on top, learning in the social workplace? That's what I just saved. And look at this, brought in the title, preview, and the link. So it's a very, very quick process to save content from the website. But if you wanted to add content that is PDF, Word document, or anything else, click New Note, select the notebook where you want to create it. So you have to have the notebook needs to be already created first, which is the grouping you want to add. Add the title. I'm going to just say test. I can drag the files here. On top, I have all kinds of tools to customize the content. It could still be linked. It could be anything I want. And I can add as quickly as that. When I'm finished, I can save. The content gets saved. Or I can share by sending a note through Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, email, or link. So there's so many ways you can share that content. I hope I'm not going too fast, but I need to speed up because of our session that's ending. So let's go back to the presentation. I hope I gave you some ideas of how you could use Evernote, and we did a group discussion a bit. So the last thing I would like you to do is to share the link with you for the feedback form. So I'm going to make sure that I give you access to this in the chat, so you will be able to do it. I will also include the survey in the follow-up email that will be going out to you. And I also want to just mention to you that we are going to have another amazing webinar actually coming up, Reading and Writing with Google. We are going to have a guest speaker from Windsor Disabilities Association. And it's Danielle, who also participated in the LOBAC conference. Lana, you will recognize the name. We were so impressed with the tools and information that she shared, and she agreed to work with us on being a presenter at our webinar. She's going to talk about how she's using Google with her students. So it's a very exciting webinar. I hope if you're interested that you sign up, because it's something that we really look forward to. And that wraps up my presentation for today. I apologize for going a bit over, but I'm going to open the floor to any questions, ideas, suggestions you have. And I'm going to turn off the recording.